And we kick off Sports Final tonight, talking Dolphins alongside Miami Herald Fins beat writer Adam Beasley. And Thursday night, the controversy between Kenny Stills and Dolphins owner Stephen Ross seemed to have overshadowed the game, wouldn't you say?
I've covered this team for 8 seasons now. It's the first time I've seen anything like that.
Yeah, in the locker room after the game, we had the opportunity to speak to Kenny Stills about the controversy, and here's what he had to say.
It just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't align. To be running a nonprofit focused on equality and talking about sports and equality, and then to be holding a fundraiser for a man that we know, isn't standing up for that same cause or championing that same cause. It's not about politics. It's never been about politics. It's more just about the human being. And, I understand that, some people think that you don't say those types of things to your boss, but for me, it's just a human being. And we're saying, if you say you're going to be about something, let's be about that.
Do you view Mr. Ross as an ally still in what you're trying to do?
I think he's trying to be, but I don't believe that you can play both sides.
Stephen Ross's fundraiser for President Trump was held in the Hamptons on Friday. Adam, you were standing right there alongside me listening to Kenny talk. What were your thoughts after that?
Couple of things. One, it was courageous. You might not agree with his politics, you might not agree with him speaking up against his owner, but you can't think that wasn't courageous. This is a guy that's owed $8 million this year. The Dolphins can walk away without owing him basically a dime. He is putting his livelihood on the line here, saying this is what's important to me. He doesn't see it, as he says, a political issue. He sees it as a moral issue, and he felt compelled to speak up.
Now, when it comes to the locker room, how much do you think this will leave a lasting effect throughout the season on this Fins locker room with Stephen Ross?
It depends. If Kenny Stills on a week-to-week basis takes shots at his owner, that's not sustainable. You can't do that. You would have to have it some sort of divorce. One go one way, one go the other. And certainly the owner is not going to sell the team, so Kenny would be the odd man out. But if this blows over, which it seems like every Trump controversy does blow over at some point, I could just see them moving on. But that relationship, I think, is never going to be the same. Ken even mentioned that he had started to distance himself from Steve Ross's anti-racism Rise initiative. And that was kind of shocking to me that even before this, he didn't feel comfortable going forward with Mr. Ross. I will say this, I doubt there'll ever be a huge reconciliation between those two. We'll get through this season, and it'll probably be the last season for Kenny Stills in Miami.
Yeah, it is our understanding that Brian Flores, the head coach, had said to Stills that he needed to take this issue straight to Stephen Ross rather than voice his opinion over social media or even out in the media. Now let's talk about this quarterback competition that everybody's been engaged
football,
with.
We're talking football?
Yes, let's talk some
All
football
right.
now. Josh Rosen, after seeing 6 series compared to just 2 for Ryan Fitzpatrick, had this to say after the game.
I've been kind of battling that my whole career. I got to find that balance of knowing when to kind of push the edge and when to just take the sack and live to play another day. I think if I can kind of hedge that gunslinger attitude a little bit and put a little bit more thought into it, I think I could develop pretty nicely.
He did show moments where he looked like a former first-round draft pick, but do you think Josh Rosen has earned first-team reps?
Of course. I mean, he's been the better quarterback in my estimation, basically since the day that Brian Flores named Ryan Fitzpatrick the front runner. He was better in the scrimmage. He was better in the preseason game. Granted, he's going against second-team or sometimes third-team defense, but no, you need to see what he's got with the protection at the best it can be, and that's with their number 1 offensive line, with the skill position players the best they can be. Kenny Stills, Kenyon Drake, Devontae Parker. Yeah, he's made Preston Williams a kind of a mini star in Miami, but let's see what he's going to do against number 1 defense with the number 1 offense. I hope it's this week out in Tampa.
I think Ryan Fitzpatrick has proven over his 15 years, considering he knows the offensive system right now, for Chad O'Shea, a first-time offensive coordinator with a first-time head coach, that he's earned the confidence of the coaching staff and the players in the locker room. He's built relationships along this. I think he's going to be the starter heading into the season, and Josh Rosen's going to outplay him, really, to be able to earn that starting role.
All right, Chris, you want to hear the conspiracy theory?
Go for it.
All right, here's the conspiracy theory. Look at the Dolphins' first 4 games on the schedule. They are brutal. Open at home against the Ravens. Second game at home against the Patriots. Third game at Dallas. Fourth game at home against the Chargers. Those are 4 of the top 10 teams in the entire league. So one might say, oh, yeah, take your time, Josh Rosen. Let Ryan Fitzpatrick take all those slings and arrows in the first 4 weeks. And then we get to the bye, which is week 5. You'll have 2 full weeks to be able to get this offense going. Then you finish the rest of the season. I think that might be a little too clever by half if that's what the Dolphins are thinking. If you think Josh Rosen gives you the best chance to win and he has a chance of being your future, you don't play around with it. You throw him out there, I would say this week, next week in the third preseason game, which is the dress rehearsal, and then the opener. You need to have an answer on Josh Rosen by the end of the season. And if you don't, it's a lost year because they're going to address the quarterback situation one way or the other after the season. Either Rosen's their guy going forward or they're going to draft someone in the first round. And you need to have all the information you can on Josh Rosen before you make that decision. So, no, I hope we see him with the ones out in Tampa on Tuesday, Wednesday for joint practices, and then the game on Friday night. If not, I think it's a missed opportunity.
See, I think you go into the bye, then you play him in Week 5, which is a home game against Washington, no less, which should be a win even for a team that isn't expected to do well.
Already calling a win against the Redskins?
So Rosen should get the start then. He's still got 12 games to prove himself the rest of the seasons. That's ample time to figure out whether he's your starter moving forward or you need to draft that guy.
Well, I would say this. In a perfect world, you're right, Chris. But this is also the same franchise that needed 7 years to have an answer on Ryan Tannehill. So I would say the more information you can gather as early as possible, the better.
Who looked really good against the Eagles,
He
by
did.
the way. We're not going to talk about that. But we are going to talk about the fact that you mentioned Preston Williams. He was a star on Thursday night. 91 yards receiving, 4 of 5 on catches, and he made Rosen look really good. Even the teammates in the locker room after the game were talking about him.
Oh, he was very impressive. I think he was one of the shockers that everybody was waiting to see. I think he did a great job. Unbelievable talent, catching the ball, versatility. Just Preston is unbelievable talent, man.
When Coach gave me the opportunity, I just tried to make the most of it. So it was like I didn't have any expectations really coming this game, but like when my number was called, I just wanted to answer.
So how impressed were you by Preston Williams?
I've been continuously impressed by the dude. I mean, he came into the league undrafted. We can talk about his, personal red flags that were the reason he went undrafted. But the talent was never in question. The ability was never in question. And he's put together a mature level of effort and of getting his personal life in order as far as we know. And he's going to have a chance to not only make this team, but play a major role. Look, I think if you're making your 53-man roster now, it's not even a question that Preston Williams is on it. The question is, how much does he play? Is Albert Wilson healthy? Can he even leapfrog Devontae Parker on the depth chart? It's crazy we're talking about this. He was nowhere on our radar draft weekend. He was just one of 24 guys they added through the rookie free agent process. But he has been so good starting at OTAs, through training camp, and now the first preseason game. He's got the goods, man. The question is, where is his ceiling? And I think it's really high.
And for a team like the Dolphins, who are very thin at a lot of positions, wide receiver is not one of them.
Correct.
Alan Hearns, a local guy, former Cane, he could be on the outside looking in. But I want to ask you, going back to Kenny Stills, making the type of money he does, could he be a guy that gets cut, considering this whole situation?
It's a great question that I don't have a perfect answer for. I will say this. I would say it's more likely that he gets traded than he gets cut. I think he has way too much value for the Dolphins for them to cut him outright. It's not like this guy's got off the field issues. He just has a political disagreement, and he says a moral disagreement with the owner. And how is that handled? But you mentioned Preston Williams. Albert Wilson's another one to watch. Jakeem Grant. If a lot of these skill position players really get their acts together, get healthy, get ready for the regular season, then maybe Kenny does become expendable. And if the Dolphins, who are totally all in on the 2020 draft, if they can get a third-day pick, a fourth round, fifth round pick for Kenny Stills, who has a team-friendly contract for a player of his ability, then yeah, I think they would strongly consider it. And they should, because they're not going to win the Super Bowl this year. They're probably not going to make the playoffs or even go 500 this year. So this year is about acquiring as many pieces as you can for when you are good. I don't think Kenny Stills is part of the long-term answer, so if you can get an asset for him, I think you do it.
What are you looking forward to this week in Tampa, going up against Bruce Arians and that new look Buccaneers
team?
team?
I thought you were going to ask what I'm most looking forward to, which is Burns Steakhouse.
Of
course. But number 2 is the level of physicality. We're going to see some preseason games. To me, are largely irrelevant. But these joint practices, you get to see ones versus ones for 2 hours a day, 2 days this week, and it's going to be fantastic. The action is going to be great. Bruce Arians is going to shy away from a physical, hard-fought practice. Brian Flores definitely isn't either. So, yeah, I'm going to look for how the offensive line, which got its butt kicked by the Falcons, goes against the Buccaneers' defensive line. I'm going to see if they can get any pressure on the quarterback, which they did not. Hopefully Eric Rowe, who didn't play against Atlanta, is back healthy. We can see what their defense is going to look like. I think we'll have a pretty good feel this time next week what this season's going to be. And, of course, things change. Injuries happen. Players surprise us. But if they go up to Tampa and they hold their own and they outplay the Buccaneers, maybe we got something here in Miami. If they go up there and get thrashed, it's going to be a very long season in Miami.
And at the end of the day, we get to see our old friend Ndamukong Suh. Adam Beasley heading to Tampa. Actually, so am I. I'll see you up there, bud. Thank you for joining us today.
Of course.